We're happy to be here. This is my wife Sherry up in the front row. In May, we celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. Cool. And we met when we were 15, started dating, got promised when we were 16. How many remember those days, promise rings? She still got hers. And got engaged when we were 17, married when we were 18, moved to India, and we've been traveling ever since. And we're missionaries, and that's a word that's not found in the King James Version of the Bible. And it means someone who's sent forth. And our home church sent us out in 1984 to India. We moved to India, lived there, have done a lot of ministry in India over the years, have planted churches, colleges, orphanages, hospitals. It's kind of funny. I got somebody sending me text messages so fast right now, I couldn't keep up with them for nothing. And it's popping up everywhere. Anyhow, we're just missionaries, and we like to go places where other people don't go, and we like to do what nobody else is doing. And if you can find a way to do that, you can really impact people. And so when we moved to India in 1985, our kids were 2, 5, and 6. And the first couple years we were there, we never had a house. We lived in hotels. We would travel to a city, stay there for 8 weeks, spend 2 weeks organizing a crusade, open air crusade, build stage, lighting, advertising, promotion, meet with pastors, hold a crusade for 21 days, then start a church on the second week of that crusade, and then stay for 1 or 2 Sundays after that crusade, then move to the next city. And if you do that long enough, you can hold over 200 crusades. And you can preach to millions of people, see millions of Hindu people come to Jesus, plant hundreds of churches. We've had 3 children's homes. We have a children's home right now. And we love to minister to hurting, poor people. And, Pastor Tony, I've never told you this, but you knew me back when I used to hold big crusades. The biggest crusade I ever had grew to 300,000 to 500,000 people. Lots of crusades with 50 or 75 or 90,000 people a night. And that was all great, and I love that, but it was really, a crusade gives the church a voice to a city. It gives the church visibility in the city. It gives people that have never heard the name of Jesus an opportunity to come and hear Jesus in a neutral place. But it's hard to quantify how many people are added to the church from a crusade. And so I searched for a way to do better and more. And I worked really hard and had some of the best systems in the world for reaching people, following up on people, getting people from the crusade ground to the church ground. And all of that was fun, and I loved all that. But in 2013, I said, God, I want something I can sink my teeth in and something I can run with for years to come. Man, I prayed about it. I thought about it. I had this big idea, dream, a vision, and I started telling Sherry and our staff, so what we're going to do is we're going to start putting wells in villages in India, and we're going to adopt a huge slum in Brazil that'll have 300,000 people in it, and we're going to start building church buildings, and we're probably, by the year 2020, we'll build maybe 5 church buildings, and maybe we can do 15 water wells. Wow, did I underestimate what God said? We started doing wells. Go to a remote village in India where there's no water. I know that's hard to imagine when every day you just go turn the water on and it's there and you get to enjoy it, but there's still maybe 1 billion or more people that don't have access to water. So we go to a village, to a church, and right in front of the church put a well. Drill a deep water well. Everybody says, well, you have hand pumps. Did anybody here ever use a hand pump to pump water before? Well, they're cool. My grandparents had them when I was a kid, but the thing is, you can only pump water by hand 150 feet down. And so in India, the water table is so low, you have to go down to 600 to 1,000 feet. So we put really good wells in, deep water wells with a pump down at the bottom. They're estimated to run 20 to 25 years with no service. And we put it right in front of the church. And then the pastor starts telling everybody, there's water here. Everybody can come here and get water. It's free. It's for all people, all ethnicities, all religions. Everybody can come to the church and you can get water every morning. Ladies, you don't have to walk 2 miles to a creek, a stream, a mud hole to get water. You can get it right here in our own village. So every morning you go to those wells, and at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, there'll be a long row of buckets, at least double wide, all the way down the street in this little village. And that's where women go the night before and put their buckets so they have a place in line. And about 4:30, the pastor and his wife get up, which is very common in village India. And they go out and they flip the power onto the well, and people start getting water. And they stand there and they talk to those people and they greet them. And somebody says, well, my daughter's sick. And the pastor says, can I pray for them? And they prays for them. So the people come to get water on Monday. Sometimes they come 2 or 3 times a day. Actually, sometimes the wells are in churches that are by a train station or a bus station or a little highway, and thousands of people come and get water every day. We have some wells where truck drivers know they can go there and get water for their trucks. So there's just a row of trucks out there all the time. A lot of different ways that it works. But they come on Monday and get water, and Tuesday and Wednesday they're at the church getting water, and Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And you know what happens if you go to the church to get water every day? You go to church. Yeah, and you know what happens if you go to a church every day and get water day after day, week after week, month after month? Eventually, you get some of that living water. And we found that humanitarian aid projects like that do more to win people and bring them into the church than most of our big evangelism campaigns ever did. So every day we have about 500,000 people drinking water from our wells. We were in India in the end of June and July, and my wife has been to every well personally and dedicated every well. We dedicated well number 123 in July. And I was kicked out of India in 2013 when I had this big vision to start doing all these wells in India. But you could kick me out of India, but you couldn't kick India out of me. And so we just started doing the wells, and her brother works with us. So they would travel to India together. She's been to every well dedication. When we were there in the first part of July, we dedicated 26 wells in 3 days. We spent 14 to 16 hours a day driving from village to village to village to village to village. We also dedicated a new dormitory for the boys in our boys' home. Right now, we're today drilling a well. It'll be our 4th well in the last 3 weeks. And when we go back to India in September, we'll dedicate 5 more wells and a church and a parsonage in a very remote tribal area. And that'll be church number about 25 and well number 131 or 133 or something. So that's what happens when you have vision, when you have an idea, when you have a plan. So that's what we do. We have a children's home. We travel every year to India, Indonesia, Spain. I'll mention a few things in my message. Costa Rica, Brazil. I've been to Brazil about 35 times. Pastor Tony said that I've ministered to bikers around the world. I might be able to relate to bikers. And I got the T-shirt and the Harley to prove it. But I love to do that. It's a privilege. It's like a little pastime that I have ministering to bikers. God's used me to win a lot of presidents of clubs. All the big clubs, the clubs that control this city, I've ministered to most of their presidents. It's been very cool. And that's what we do. So, when pastors Tony and Lori moved here a few years ago, he said, Jack Harris, this church is going to help you reach the world. And that's why I'm telling you some of this stuff today. You guys help us reach the world. Every month you send money. I don't know exactly how you give your offerings here, but whatever you give, a percentage of that goes to missions every month, and a percentage of that comes to us. So when we get on the airplane on September 9th to head to Indonesia and India, we're taking some of you with us. Pretty cool, huh? Isn't it amazing how God has plans to do things, and a lot of times we don't even get it. So I want to speak to you this morning, and my title is I Trust God. How many have this little flyer? If you didn't get one, I bet if you raise your hand, we can find somebody to bring you one. There's just a few people here that don't have one. Can somebody get them for them? Those beautiful girls that were at the front door. By the way, does anybody here ride motorcycles? I love you. I love you. I love you. How many of you ride Harleys? I love you a little less. No, look, I've had 5 gold wings. I've had Raj Dukes, Yezdis, Hondas, whatever. If you got 2 wheels, you're good. So I'm going to speak today about trusting God. And so when I say that, I'm not sure what you think. Like, if I say dog, if you own a dog, you probably have a picture of your dog in your mind. Like pastors Tony and Lori were looking at pictures of their dogs last night. So they have, what are those poodles called? golden doodles. Very cool, which her best friend sent us a picture of her daughter's golden doodle that she's house sitting this morning. And so you might think of a golden doodle, or what was that other one? Havanese. But when I say dog, I think of a brindle-colored French bulldog, 21 pounds, named Butch, full of life, full of energy. He's going to go crazy when I walk in the house tonight. He's my boy. So when I say trust God, I'm not sure what you think, what enters your mind, or what goes, but I'm going to talk today about trusting God at a really high level. I mean, at a level that's life-changing, not only for the people that do it, but for everybody around us. To trust God, to really trust God. I want to read this verse of Scripture to you in, let's see, where's that at? Yeah, I didn't talk about the slum stuff we do in Brazil. That's pretty cool stuff too. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Think about that. Meditate on that. Brew over that a little bit. Think about that over a cup of coffee. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. I want to say something about that in a minute, but that's a pretty crazy thought, not to lean to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. I love what that says, just to trust God, to believe God, to put your hope in God. Listen to this story. This is in Luke chapter 8. It says, one day he and his disciples got in a boat, and he said, let's cross the lake, and off they went. It was smooth sailing. You know, everybody can trust God when it's smooth sailing. When everything is beautiful, everybody trusts God. How are you doing? I'm doing great. What are you going to do when hell breaks loose? Are you still going to be great? You should be. Oh, think about that. Man, I wish I could preach that too, Pastor. Anyhow, as they were sailing, he fell asleep. A terrific storm came up suddenly on the lake. Water poured in. They were about to capsize. They woke Jesus. So look, you can process this however you want. I'm just going to say Jesus was woke. Master, Master, we're going down. Getting to his feet, he told the wind, silence, and the waves, quiet down. They did it. The lake became smooth as glass. Then he said to his disciples, why can't you trust me? Why can't you trust me? We have to learn how to really trust God, to believe God. To whatever God says, we do it. We believe it. We understand it. I would say one of the themes of my ministry in the last 45 years is knowing God's will for your life. You must know God's will for your life. I know Kent's here this morning, and I talked to him, and I remember years ago when I came and spoke at a men's meeting, Pastor, I don't have any idea what I spoke about really, but I promise you, I said something in that meeting about knowing God's will for your life. You must know God's will for your life, because if you don't know his will for your life, then basically you're lost and you're just drifting. Oh, I don't know how to know that. Well, I'm sure Pastor Tony's taught about that lots of times. And I'll tell you this, if you want to know God's will for your life, the first thing you have to do, it takes a lot of bravery, ask him. Just go before the Lord. Sit down somewhere. God, what is your will for my life? And wait for it. Just wait for it. He'll speak to you. He speaks to all of us all the time. You may have to turn a lot of noise off in your life. You may have to turn the TV off, the internet off, your classic 64 Impala that you're restoring, which is what I'm doing right now. Yeah. You may have to turn all of that off and be still before the Lord. But he will speak to you, and he will tell you what his will is. It may take a day or 2 days or 3 days. I go away and pray every January for 3 days because it takes me 3 days to really hear from God. But if you ask him, he will tell you that. So you have to know God's will for your life, and you have to do God's will for your life. It's not just enough to know what he wants. You have to get up and go do it. So here's the first question that's on this handout right here. Can you trust God? Can you personally trust God? Can you do whatever God says, whenever he says it, wherever he says it? So look, my wife and I went into ministry like lots of our friends did, just like Pastors Tony and Lori did. We were young. We were excited. We thought we would just be pastors like everybody we knew, and that we'd pastor a church somewhere and grow old pastoring the church, loving those people. We didn't know God had another plan for us that didn't have anything to do with pastoring a church, but had something to do with pastoring pastors and missionaries. And when God spoke that to us, we thought, oh, we'll live somewhere in Missouri or someplace, and that'll be it. But then we were in the military, and we went to Germany, and I saw how few good churches there were in Germany. And I was back here ministering, and I kept thinking, what about Germany? What about Germany? Could we go to Germany and pastor a church near a military base to have English-speaking and German-speaking people? They need more churches there than we need here. America's got churches. We got church everywhere. People say, oh, we have heathen here in America. We do have a lot of heathen here in America, as a matter of fact, but they all have TV and internet and video and billboards and radio and a church on every corner. There is access to the gospel here, but some places there aren't. And God led me on a journey, and first, I think he used Germany because I'd been there and I could see that, imagine that. But then God started saying, well, what about the Philippines? And what about Rhodesia? And what about this? And what about that? And I was willing to go from where I was this far for God. But one day God said, I want you to move your family to India. And look, that was a different story. So, I called my wife from the church office. That was like Pastor Tony and Laura, 84. I called Sherry, God speaking to you today? Nope, I haven't heard anything. I said, go pray. She said, why? I said, he's speaking to me. She said, tell me what he said. I said, no, you go pray. 15 minutes later, she called me back. I said, did God speak to you? She said, no. I want you to come home and tell me what God said. This is really what she said. You're my man of God. You come home and tell me what God said. So I went home. I said, Sherry, we're moving to India. She said, oh my God, why India? She said, you told me India is the hardest place in the world for Americans. I said, it is. She said, why India? I said, well, number one, if we go where it's the darkest, our light will shine the brightest. Just think about that. Everybody wants to preach the gospel where there's already light. If you really want to preach the gospel, go to a strip club. There's a lot of darkness there. Oh, Pastor Jack, you're joking. Oh, no, I'm not joking. Go to a bar. Go to a country club. Go to a hunting club. My son-in-law belongs to a hunting club. Look, it's a great place to go shine the gospel light. Just go there on Saturday morning and eat breakfast with all those guys and laugh and talk and cut up and act like you know how to shoot a gun, whether you can shoot or not. Yeah, I said, if we go where it's India, our light will shine the brightest. If we go where it's the darkest. And if we start in India, everything else will be downhill after that. Well, I was pretty much right about that one too. So we moved to India. Can you trust God? Look, I have a tattoo on my arm right there that says, I trust God. You know why? Every time I look in the mirror, I want to be reminded, I trust God. My best friend got killed in a motorcycle wreck. I thought I knew the path of his life. I knew where he was going. He was a young guy. I thought I knew, but I didn't. It was a crushing blow to me. His wife is my wife's best friend. He was one of my best friends. I thought I knew what was going to happen with them. I thought they would be sitting with us right here today because they travel with us lots of places when we preach. But God had another plan, and you know what? Sometimes you have to trust God's plan more than your plan. So, can you trust God? Learn how to trust God goes against all of our natural instincts. A lot of people say, if you're going to trust God, you have to have some common sense. Well, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7 says, we walk by faith and not by sight. We walk by faith in God and God's word and not by sight. So when people tell me you have to use common sense, I just want to say, no. Common sense will get you in trouble. You have to have uncommon sense. Yeah, because common sense is what you know, what you understand, what you've experienced, what you've seen, what you feel, what you think. And look, we all know this if you really think it. Most of those things are all directly opposed to God. What you think doesn't matter. It's what He thinks that matters. What you've experienced, or what your aunt experienced, or what your neighbor experienced, doesn't matter. I know somebody and they did the same exact thing I did and they got a different result. Well, they didn't do the same exact thing you did. They were doing something different than you were doing. So, my grandma was from Mississippi. She was great at making the best cat head biscuits. Anybody ever had any of those? Just think about it. Big, fluffy biscuits. And I've called her from all around the country and all around the world. Hey, Grandma, give me that recipe for those biscuits again. Well, you need all-purpose flour, and you need baking soda, and you need this, and you need a little this and a little bit of that. Look, I can never make biscuits like her, even though I had her telling me exactly what to do. You may think you're doing what everybody else is doing, but you have to do what the Word of God says and what God says to you personally. And uncommon sense is what it takes to do that. When God told us to move to India, we just moved. When things got tough, we just stayed. The day came when we were in India in 1987 that we had held a great crusade, had about 90,000 people the last night of a 3-week crusade, had planted a church. We're staying in a little, very Hindu hotel. My wife, myself, and 3 kids, and a lady that had volunteered to come over and help us, but she didn't tell us she had no money till we were in Singapore on the way over there. And I said, how are you going to do this? She said, well, I don't have any money. And so I was believing God for my family plus one. And we're staying in this little hotel. My wife says, Jack, we don't have money to feed the kids in the morning. We have zero money. Well, look, there was no credit card, no call mom and dad and say, can you drop off a bag of groceries? I mean, we were in India with 3 children in a hotel on Tuesday night with no money to feed our children on Wednesday morning. And that Thursday, I had to pay another week's rent for the hotel room, or we had to move out. That's when you're in a tough spot, when you're in India in a village and you don't have money. I called back to St. Louis and asked the guy that took care of our finances here. In other words, he got our mail and deposited and sent money to us once a month. He said, Jack, you don't have any money. You're so in debt, it's crazy. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you owe the travel agent for your airplane tickets to get to India. You owe a van payment. You owe American Express. You owe your travel agent. You owe this. I owed $20,000 in immediately or past due bills when I called back. I was hoping to call and get a little encouragement. Yeah, I'll send you a couple $1,000. You'll be okay. I said, oh, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, come home. I said, oh, no, coming home is not an option. Jesus told us go. He didn't say come back yet. He said, what are you going to do? I don't know. Went in the hotel room. There wasn't even a phone in that little hotel. I was down in the lobby. I went and told Sherry, no money. She said, what are we going to do? I said, I don't know. I don't know. We cried. We held each other. I said, put the kids to bed. We had 2 beds, and they slept sideways on one bed, and we slept on the other one. We cried. We cried out to God, oh, God, you told us to come here. God, you owe us. Best lesson you can ever learn in your life. God owes you nothing. You owe him everything. I said, I don't know what we're going to do, Sherry. So we decided we would somehow get our children 350 miles away to the Youth with a Mission base in Chennai with Tim and Carol Sabota, and they could stay there, and we would sleep on the street like millions of Indians do every single night. And you know what? There would be nothing wrong with us doing that. We are no better than Indians. We're the same. So that's what our decision was. We went to bed about 2 o'clock in the morning after we cried ourselves to sleep, literally. First thing the next morning, somebody knocked on the door. Pastor Jack, it was a pastor. You came and spoke at my church a few weeks ago. I have an offering for you. I said, how much is it? He was a little short guy. How much is it? It was about $100. I said, thank you, Pastor. Turn around to Sherry. There's money for groceries. Go get some breakfast. Got a phone call from Youth with a Mission. You spoke at our discipleship training school. The students took an offering. How much is it? About $100. Between that week, over 3 or 4 days, over $1,000 came in India, and we had never received a penny in India before. I left and went to North India to hold my first North India crusade, left Sherry in that town. That was in November of 87. In April of 88, we got on the airplane to fly out of there. The $20,000 was paid off. We traveled all over India, preached, held crusades, planted churches, and had several $1,000s in our pockets. You know why? We trust God. Yeah, sometimes God gets you right where he wants you. He positions you right where he needs you. Maybe not where he needs you today or tomorrow, but maybe next week or next month or next year. And he puts you there, and he thinks if he says, go to India, you'll just go to India and stay there. But we go, and then we start saying, well, what if this changed, that changed, and I have this problem, I had that problem. I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to go back where I was. I'm going to go somewhere else. And when God needs us, we're not there. Think about that. So, one time, 2001, I was driving down the highway on a Friday night, headed to family church for their Friday night service. My phone rings. I look at it. I don't recognize the number, but I answer it. This voice says, "Jack, this is Brother Floyd Lahan." You ever heard of him, Tony? The most famous evangelist in the Church of God. I never met him before. This is Brother Floyd Lahan. I said, "Hey, Brother Lahan, how you doing?" He said, "Jack, I know you don't know me. The good Lord spoke to me about you last night. Hope you don't mind. I got your number from a mutual friend. The good Lord told me to tell you to meet me in Indonesia in October, and I'll open the country of Indonesia for you." Well, I've never been to Indonesia. I didn't know Floyd Lahan. I'd never met him before, just heard about him. He was famous. I didn't know he had the key to Indonesia to open the country for me. He said, "If you'll meet me there in October, I'll do what the good Lord told me to do." So you know what I said? I said, "Brother Lahan, I don't know you. I've never met you. Let me just take a few days and pray about this. And my wife and I will fast a couple days, and I'll get back to you in a few days and let you know if I want to meet you there in October." Heck no, that's not what I said. When the man of God calls and says, "Go to Indonesia," you say, "Yes, sir, I will be there." That's true. That's right. That's what I think. I said, "I'll be there." He said, "You fly to Surabaya on this date." I said, "I'll be there. I'll call you back and let you know when I book my tickets." If you put one finger on St. Louis and the other finger on Surabaya, opposite sides of the world. He told me, he said, "Actually, just fly to Jakarta. I'll have somebody meet you there." So I got a business friend of mine, Jim Donzie. I said, "Hey, you want to make a lightning trip to Indonesia?" He said, "What's that mean?" I said, "It means we'll leave on Thursday or Friday. We'll get there Saturday. We'll be there Sunday. Monday, we'll head home." He said, "I'm in. Let's go." So we fly there. We get to Jakarta, Indonesia, walk out of the airport. There's a guy standing there holding a piece of paper like this that says Reverend Jack Harris on it. So I walk over to him and say, "Hi, I'm Jack Harris." He said, "I'm Pastor Sohandoko." I said, Sohandoko. "Aren't you the general superintendent of the churches of God of Indonesia?" He said, "I am." I said, "How many churches do you oversee?" He said, 3,500. I said, "I'm surprised you're holding the sign." He said, "I never held the sign before in my whole life." I said, "Well, why are you holding the sign today?" He said, "Because Jack Harris has come to Indonesia." So I had a meal with him. We got on another flight, flew to Surabaya, went into a beautiful hotel. Somebody took our bags to our room. We went straight into a little banquet room in a restaurant. I sat there with Pastor Alex Tandrapucha, 125,000 member church, Timothy Arafin, a 10,000 member church, a couple other guys, and Floyd Lahan and two of his friends. And we just talked for hours. The next day, we went to this 125,000 member church. They have a 20,000 seat auditorium with multiple services, a 4,000 seat with multiple services. I attended 5 services. Every service, they said, "We want you to speak." And I'd say, "Nope, I didn't come here to speak. I just came here at Pastor Floyd's invitation." I didn't know. It totally puzzled them. Everybody in the world wants to speak in that 125,000 member church. Nobody ever tells them no. Finally, they said, "Well, you promise us that you will come back and speak." I said, "I promise that." So, I left. Monday morning, I got on a plane. I flew back home. Sherry said, "How was it?" I said, "It was amazing. It was beautiful. We'll go back." So we started going back. We spoke in that church and did things they did, took teams with us. Another church that had 175,000 people in Jakarta. We did stuff with them. It was great. It was cool. And I thought, which let me just tell you this, sometimes when you think, you mess up. I thought that was the purpose of Floyd Lahan calling me, inviting me to Surabaya, that was it, to go preach in those churches. Look, I was so off base, it's unbelievable. I thought that was the end result. I thought that was the good part. Hey, look, all preachers, Tony basically said this morning, all preachers want to preach in a big church. I mean, you go to, I preached in services now lots of times over there where there'll be 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people in the service and they close one and then start another one or go down one more floor in the building and there's another one starting down there and you go preach there. I love all that. It's amazing. But I thought that was it. But then one day in 2004, December 24th, a tsunami hit Asia, and most of the tsunami hit northern Indonesia. Indonesia has 19,000 islands. 13 are inhabited. It hit the north of North Sumatra, Indonesia, and it killed 165,000 people in 2 waves in 2 minutes. And I wanted to go there and help people. So I called my friend, Alex Tantrapuzza. I kind of like their names over there, Pastor Tony. I said, Pastor, this is Jack. I want to go to Banda Aceh. He said, Bamban Yonan. I said, who's that? He said, Pastor Bamban Yonan, pastors the church of Medan, Indonesia, the closest big city to the disaster zone. I said, I don't know him. He said, I'll call him now. Give me 5 minutes. You call him. He'll take care of you. I called Bamban Yonan, said, my name's Jack Harris. He said, oh yeah, Pastor Alex just called me about you. You know what that's called? The Floyd Lahan factor. That guy, everybody in the world was going there. Every major Christian organization you can imagine was wanting to go there and do stuff. I had a great opening because I had friends there. I said, Pastor, I want to come and help people. Well, what do you want me to organize? I said, I don't want you to organize anything for me. I'm not here coming for me. I'm coming for you. I'll come and I'll bring a pocket full of money. So you know what? About 10 days later, I landed there. I had made and received over 500 phone calls in those 10 days. I had $250,000 $100 bills in my pocket. And you know what you can do with $250,000 in cash in a disaster zone? Anything you want. I would go meet with that pastor 5:30 every morning, sit around the conference table in his office, and he and a couple of his leaders, we would plan what we're going to do 3 days from then and 3 more days from that. And we started planning aid packages and relief packages and food and all kinds of stuff. It was crazy, unbelievable. We would leave every day about 9 o'clock. Some of us, I had 2 guys with me, Pat Bradley, Jim Harris, and Steve Smith. 2, we get in an airplane, a little airplane, a missionary aviation fellowship plane, and fly one way. I would get in a helicopter and fly another way. We would distribute stuff all day long. We like to be at distributions and make sure it really gets there. It was amazing. I can't tell the whole story, there's not time. We distributed millions of dollars of aid there. You know why? I trust God. When I got a phone call from the man of God, I didn't mess around. I did what the man of God said. And I'm suggesting that to you today. When a known man of God, a proven man of God, says something to you, you do it. Because that's just as thus saith the Lord. Thank you for all those amens. I know you like it. Yeah, that's what I call trusting God. So the first question on that flyer is, can you trust God? The second one is, can God trust you? Can God trust you with something important? Can God trust you with something powerful? Can God trust you to be where He put you? So I'm from St. Louis. Years ago, my aunt and uncle, who are from Mississippi, my dad's sister and brother-in-law, they said, we're moving down to Ponchatoula, Louisiana. Look, that was like a foreign country to all of us. And everyone was like, how do you get there? You know what she said? You just get on I-55 and drive south to the first traffic signal and turn left and turn right on the first street, and our house is on the corner. And people are like, what? Drive all the way to Louisiana and there's going to be a stoplight down there and you turn left and that's it? That's it. You know how many people went down to see them? Hardly nobody, because they didn't think they could find it. Look, when God says do something, just go do it. If God tells you to get some education, just go get the education. If God tells you to move someplace, if it's God, just move to that place. If God tells you to stay, just stay. Because He's putting you where He needs you. He's putting you where He can use you. And when God puts you where He needs you and where He can use you, let me tell you, it's the sweetest spot on earth. But too many people mess it up. First, they can't hear from God. Second, they hear from God, don't know how to confirm that it is God. Third, God tells them to do something, and it ain't what they wanted to do, so they just don't do it. Thank God I've got a willing wife. I said, let's move to India. You know what she said to me that day when I went home? I said, we're going to move to India. She asked me that one question, why India? Then she just looked at me and she said, well, you're my man of God. You tell me what day, and I'll have the house packed up, and me and the kids will be ready to go. January 3rd, that year, we got on the plane and we took off. Let me tell you, what an adventure it's been. When we stand here and say, yeah, we've planted hundreds of churches, built hundreds of buildings, won millions to the Lord, spoke to 100,000 pastors, all that. You know why it all happened? Because we had it somehow. I don't know how. I don't know. And when we were in India and it looked like we could quit, should quit, everybody would have thought it was okay to quit. One of my board members said, just come back to America. You have a return ticket. You can go back to India sometime. I was like, no. God said go. He didn't say come home yet. I'm not coming home. You know, sometimes if you want to do something great for God, you got to go through hell. And when you're going through hell, I got some good advice for you. Don't stop till you get to the other side. Just keep on going. You'll get through it. Oh, Pastor Jack, I'm in a really rough place right now. Well, first of all, I'm sorry that you're in a rough place. I really am sorry. But maybe that rough place is teaching you something. Maybe that rough place is positioning you for something. Maybe that rough place is where God needs you to be right now. Maybe you work in that factory that you don't like and you don't want to work in that factory, that office you don't want to work, where people are not, I can't believe how many Christians say, I can't really stand being around the people I work with. They're all sinners. Well, why the heck do you think you're working there? You're the light. You're the salt. Don't hate that. Love that. Pastor Jack, I think I can make more money somewhere else. Maybe you could. And maybe that would be God's will for you if you go back up to the beginning of the message and know the will of God for your life. Maybe that is God's will for you. But maybe God's will is for you to be right where you are. Probably, most likely, most of you live right in the house and the neighborhood God wants you to live in. Well, Pastor Jack, I was really wanting another house. Well, I kind of like to have another one too. But I'm still trying to win the other 6 neighbors that live on my street. Had a little success, not a lot. Pastor Jack, I was really wanting to change jobs. Well, back to point number 1, know the will of God. If that's God's will, change jobs. If it's not, just stay where you are. Well, it'd be easier somewhere else. Look, life is not about being easy. Life is about doing the right thing in the right time at the right place. When Floyd Lahan called me, what if I would have said, well, Brother Floyd, I've never been to Indonesia, and I don't think I want to go. What would have happened? Now, we've been there. That 20,000 member church in Medan is now a 125,000 member church. They're building a 15,000 seat auditorium. Pastor Tony, you'll love this. From the floor right there to the ceiling is 150 feet. From the floor on the back of the stage, it's a dome, so it comes out as 100 feet. Has a 15,000 seat lower level auditorium. They've planted churches everywhere. They call me pastor there. When I go there, I meet with them, talk with them, strategize with them, build plans with them. They've sent us to remote islands of Indonesia because they want to reach their country with the gospel. You know how all that happens? Just trust God. Pastor Jack, you can tell a heck of a lot of stories. I know. When you're in the will of God and you just stay there, things start happening. And it may take a while. It may take a few years. But when you're faithful and you stay, Pastor Tony knows this. I helped start Life Christian Center in 1980. We started with 19 people in a hotel room, not in an auditorium, in a room. The church grew to thousands. Lots of great ministries have come out of there. One that you know well, Dan Salas, came out of there. Lots of great ministries came out of there. I see people all the time. I preach in churches all over St. Louis, and they say, you still go to church at Life? And I go I try and be nice, but usually I just go, where else would I go? Well, there's a lot of churches. I said, yeah, but there's only one church for me, Life. One time somebody said, some bad things happen there. I go, are you kidding me? Some bad things happen in church? You must be kidding me. No, you don't know. I go, of course I know about it. I'm on the board of the church. I'm a mentor to the pastor. The pastor's son is now the pastor. I'm a mentor to the pastor. Of course I know that. Well, we left. I'm like, well, why did you leave? And they said, well, we didn't like it. I said, so the church that you went to, do they have problems there? Yeah. I said, so you left one problem for another problem. Why didn't you just stay where God told you to go? One time, the people that sit right behind us for years, Earl and Judy, I'll let you figure out the rest of it. We're not there all the time. We're hardly ever there. Went to church, they weren't there. I said, hey, what happened to those people? Somebody said, oh, they left. I said, really? I said, why? Nobody knows. I said, well, somebody should know why they left. I'm going to find out. So they lived out in St. Charles. So one night, I drove out to St. Charles, pulled over on the curb 2 blocks from their house, called them up and said, hey, guys, how you doing? Oh, we're doing fine. What are you doing? Well, we're sitting out on the patio drinking a cup of coffee. I said, really? Yeah. I said, I would love to sit on your patio looking over your pool and drink a cup of coffee. They said, Jack, you can come by anytime. You know that. And I said, great, go open the front door. Really? Yeah, I'll be at the front door. I went, sat out there. We had coffee. We talked, had a good time. Finally, I said, how come you guys left the church? They said, oh, there's a problem. I said, what was the problem? They told me. I said, yeah. They said, you know about that? I said, yeah, I knew about that. Well, how come you didn't leave? I said, I choose to stay and be an agent for change instead of leaving and not knowing whatever happened. Oh, we never thought about that. So I knew about that problem. I never went to the pastor and said, you know about this problem? He already knew about that problem. We don't need people to point out problems. We need people to point out answers. They said, well, we left. I said, well, I think you should come back. So I talked to them. They said, okay, we'll come back. I said, the next Sunday I'm there, I'll call you, and you come and you sit right behind me where you always sit in the third row. Okay. So we went. Look, I couldn't get to my seat. There were so many people around this, people talking to them, having a good time with them before the service, after the service. After the crowd had died down a little bit, I said, so what do you guys think? And they said, we made a mistake. We should have never left. We're back. I said, you're back. They said, we're back. I never saw them there again. So you know what happened about 1.5 years ago? He called me one day. Jack, my wife died. I don't know anywhere I can have her funeral. We don't have a church. I said, well, I have a friend that pastors right down the street from your church. I'll call him. So we had her funeral at that church. You know why? They didn't stay where God put them. So I'm not talking about little things. Can you trust? Look, when churches talk about money and 10%, that's the small stuff. I'm talking about your life, your family, your future. Trust God. Put your trust in God and see what God will do for you. So you're probably not an evangelist. You're probably not a missionary. You're probably not going to move to another country, even though if you want to, I'll help you. But you're probably going to stay right where you are, but be where God wants you to be and be who God wants you to be. Trust God. Everybody say that with me this morning. I trust God. I trust God. Look, if you can say that wholeheartedly, deeply, I promise you, God will do amazing things with you. God bless you, everyone. I love you. Thanks for letting us come and speak today.